Over the years, Iran and the United States of America have developed serious differences. These differences have culminated into a major standoff, and this conflict is taking a new dimension. It is reported that in few hours' time, the US ships have been approaching Iran. Consequently, Iran has issued serious statements that warn the United States of America that any attack will be met by counter-attack, which prompts the question, what will happen if the United States of America strikes Iran? Will it be just a military strike or a spark that ignites a regional war? Is the war between the United States of America and Iran inevitable? And if this war unfolds, what are the long-term and the short-term consequences? To understand the current differences between the United States of America and Iran, we have to travel back to 1979. In 1979, the Islamic Revolution took place in Iran. In this revolution, the monarch was overthrown and it was replaced with a theocratic republic. And this means that from that event, the Iran foreign policy was transformed from being an ally of the United States of America to being an adversary of the United States of America. As a result of that, Washington viewed Tehran as a leadership that is hostile to the US interests in the Middle East. The other political differences is that Iran is a theocratic republic while the United States of America is a democratic republic. And these differences in governance have escalated the political conflicts that affect these two states. The other issue that has contributed to the current standoff between the United States of America and Iran is Iran's ambition to develop the nuclear weapons. Because of how the US views Iran, it was interpreted that Iran's quest to manufacture nuclear weapons could be a strategic move that could benefit various non-state actors operating in the Middle East, and some of them accused of enhancing terrorist activities. And therefore, in this line, the US has always viewed Iran as a state that sponsors international terrorism. And therefore, the fear that if Iran develops nuclear weapons, these weapons can easily land in the hands of the terrorists. The other issue is Iran's push for hegemonic status in Middle East has wrapped the feathers of the US allies in Middle East the wrong way. In the politics of Middle East, Iran and Saudi Arabia are constantly competing as to attain hegemonic status. The United States of America favors Saudi Arabia, while the Russian Federation has always favored Iran. As a result of this, the US has felt that if Iran attains hegemonic status, it will be difficult for the US to enhance its foreign policy objectives in the Middle East. And as a result of this, the US and Iran have always operated from different sides of the coin, obviously looking at each other as potential enemies and states that are opposed to each other's interest. Beyond the nuclear question, the issue of competition for influence across the Middle East has also played a role in as far as the current standoff between the United States of America and Iran is concerned. It is perceived that since Iran supports the non-state actors in Middle East, such as the Houthi rebels, the Hamas in Gaza, the Hezbollah in Lebanon, and the Houthis in Yemen, is Iran is likely to make the politics of the Middle East hostile to the states that are supporting the foreign policy objectives of the US in the Middle East. And as a result of that, the US feels that it has to come out and contain the spread of the Iranian influence in as far as the Middle East politics is concerned. So what if the United States of America attacks Iran? If the United States of America makes good its threats and it attacks Iran, then obviously there will be retaliatory attacks from Iran on the US. And this is likely to escalate to a full-blown war in the Middle East. Already, the Middle East is very volatile in as far as the conflicts are concerned. When you look at the states that are surrounding Iran, for instance, you look at Iraq, they are in a very serious political conflict. You look at a state like Yemen, they also have serious internal challenges. When you look at a state like Afghanistan, of course, there are challenges there. Iraq has challenges, and Syria has also its fair share of challenges. So when you look at that in a broad picture, if the US strikes Iran, it is likely to plunge the entire region into a conflict. And this conflict is going to drag on for so many years. And as a result of that, it is going to have serious implications on the humanitarian crises that will unfold, and also the humanitarian suffering that is likely to come up as a result of that strike. The other thing is, in terms of the economy, if the US makes good its threats of attacking Iran, then we are going to witness the spikes in oil prices because Iran controls strategic routes like the Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of the global oil flows. This threat of war can make that route to be very difficult to pass, and that is going to disrupt global chains of oil supply. And this is likely to translate to higher oil prices that can fuel global inflation. If global inflation is going to hurt global economy, and it will reflect, the effects will be reflected in various key sectors of the economy, such as transport, manufacturing, and consumer costs. The financial markets will also be volatile because there is a possibility of an economic meltdown across a sizable size of the global economy. As a result of that, investors are likely to flee certain stock markets, and these are going to experience serious drops, and this may make central banks of the concerned republics struggle with inflation and currency stability if the oil prices are not stable. The trade and supply chains will also be affected, and this will affect the flow of goods in the Middle East and in the states that depend on that route. And as the shipping routes are being disrupted, this will likely increase the insurance costs and slow the movement of goods across the Middle East. And this will translate into a major cut as far as the investment in that region is concerned. There is also a possibility of regional political and humanitarian implications. This is because any war will lead to displacement, and if displacement occurs, majority of the Middle East states are already embroiled in internal conflicts, some in active conflicts, others in post-conflict era. And if Iran war unfolds, there is a possibility that the population that is flowing out of Iran, moving to safe areas, is likely to destabilize the other states that are still embroiled in internal conflict and also facing internal challenges in terms of their political arrangement. And this is likely to put a strain on those states, and the possibility also of the proxy networks could amplify violence beyond the boundaries of Iran. And this proxy, which include the Houthis in Yemen, the Hamas in Gaza, the Hezbollah in Lebanon, are likely to enhance their military attacks on the US allied states and the US interest in the Middle East, and this is likely to throw the entire region into a war. And there would be domestic pressure inside Iran, and this could temporarily rally the nationalist sentiment and strengthen hardliners as far as countering the US is concerned, because there is a possibility of Iran invoking the idea of patriotism in as far as its fight against the US is concerned. And this is going to harden its population to rally against the US attacks in Iran, and this is likely to launch this volatile region into a protracted conflict that is going to drag on for many years. The other effect could be the global strategic and legal impacts. Of course, we have seen that in the recent past, the world is moving, or rather abandoning, the rule-based global order as it was established in the aftermath of the Second World War to unilateral actions by individual states which are contrary to the international law and the international humanitarian law. And this is reflected in the increasing tension between the major powers. And if Iran goes, if the United States attacks Iran, it is going to ignite this tension. And this is likely to make global politics to be more fluid and more volatile, and it is going to escalate tension, especially build the standoff between those states that support the United States of America and those that are opposed to it. And that is likely to make the global politics more anarchic. And that means that in the long term, the US strike on Iran And if that goes into a full-blown war, the long-term effect is that this conflict is likely to be entrenched and expanded into various war fronts in the region, and this is going to make this conflict to be very protracted with very serious human cost and negative consequences on the economy, which will be reflected on sustained inflation and slow global growth. There will be also disruption of global order as we know it today, because states are likely to take sides. And as they take sides, then the element of hardlining is going to come into force. And this is likely to make global politics more confrontational compared to how they are. Then, of course, this in the long term can unfold other serious humanitarian crises as the number of the refugees increase, and it can also mean that this conflict is going to break down the governance institutions in the Middle East, and there is a possibility of creating ungoverned spaces that can be exploited by the existing terrorist cells in the Middle East and enhance terrorist activities on an international scale. And also, because of this attack, the terrorists will be out to exploit the narratives and enhance their recruitment and radicalization, especially those that are opposed to the United States of America. And lastly, in the long term, if this conflict unfolds and if the global institutions are not able to talk to the two sides and move them to the diplomatic table, and if this conflict goes into a full-blown war, it is going to enhance the erosion of international norms, as we have seen in the recent past, where there is an increase on the unilateral state actions that are contrary to the international law and contrary to the UN Charter. And this is likely to push the world from the current dispensation of rule-based global order to a new world order where states are expressing power in its raw form.